Life is good at Santa Anita. A park shipper rolls at the Aqueduct Championship meet. All of this and more on the Future Book. This week on the January 4th edition of the Future Book, a weekly look at the 3-year-olds on the way to the Triple Crown racing season. We'll take a look back at the Jerome Stakes, the Mucho Macho Man, and the Sham Stakes from Santa Anita. Starting off at the Big A, it was Capo Kane, a shipper from Philadelphia, Parks Racing, and he went wire to wire at Aqueduct, winning at almost 7-to-1 odds. An interesting race development. Swill was pretty much the race favorite at 7-5. Eagle Orb took also a lot of action on the tote board, but right away out of the gate, aggressively ridden to the lead and getting that spot and kind of establishing position. It was Capo Kane who picked up the victory. He is going to be pointed for the Wither Stakes next, and the rest of the horses kind of disappointing. I think you'll see a familiar pattern on these early preps. A lot of these horses will run themselves off the Triple Crown trail, but one of the things I like to do is take a look, because these are the horses that are going to be racing on some of the minors 3-year-old stakes races. They'll be on some of the undercards, and you can get some nice prices on them if you kind of can take a look at which ones ran kind of good races in some of these prep races and which ones kind of you can throw out as some of these races continue on down the series. So I really won't be taking a look at some of the other horses out of there. I do think Swill could be maybe a better runner sprinting up to 7 furlongs, and we'll see if he maybe goes to a race like the Bay Shore later on at Aqueduct. Meanwhile, at Gulfstream Park, it was Mutasaabeq, bet down late to about even money on the tote board, and he did not disappoint. Of course, the big factor here, being a son of Into Mischief, he was going back to dirt, and Into Mischief's run their best races on the dirt. He ran a couple of turf races, and he had struggled a couple of times getting out of the gate. And of course, he had some back class. He kind of dominated in his debut race, showed some pretty good speed in his debut, and then hadn't run back to that facing Jackie's Warrior in his next start. But he kind of got off to a good start. He got a good warm-up from Luis Saez. He looked really good on the track, an extended warm-up, galloped out nice on the track, and really took it to him early, established position, tracking the speed in this race, and took the lead going into the turn under a little bit of pressure from jockey Luis Saez, and then pulled away clear late to the victory over the runner-up Papa 2. Papa 2 made a little bit of a run from the outside post position, getting a position going into the stretch, and then ran a nice second in this race. Those are probably the only 2 runners of note out of this race. And then out west, it was 1-5. It was Life is Good after a dominating debut victory. He was bet down to 1-5 in this spot. Trainer Bob Baffert, jockey Mike Smith, you know the routine. Bob Baffert also had Medina Spirit in this race, and that was the horse who gave Life is Good, who went off to the early lead, opened up a 2-length lead down the backstretch, and from there it was really just a paid workout. He opened up by 3 going into the turn, ended up winning by about a diminishing half a length, but him and Medina Spirit were clearly ahead of the 3rd place finisher, almost 10 lengths back to the 3rd place finisher in this race. And this is one of those races where people were talking about it. I thought it was a solid race. The speed figure came back from Bayer already. We've got the speed figures from the 3 preps. We've got an 84 for Capo Kane, 101 for Life is Good, and an 87 for Mutasabek. And if you kind of take a look visually at those races, that's about where I would rate them. All 3 of them had good trips. There's really no hidden figures in this race. Life is Good. Really, there was nothing he could do after that debut that was going to really wow you in this spot. It was his 2nd lifetime race, and it was January 2nd. You're not going to go all out in a race like this. He's got speed. The only thing I will note is he doesn't look like your traditional Into Mischief. He doesn't look as blocky and muscular And I think the key thing with these horses racing off Lasix is, you could maybe start to see a few of these horses getting 3 preps. Without that Lasix, they're not going to drain the tanks as much, and these horses should get back on the track and start training up to their next race. So, Life is Good, a winner. I think we'll probably see him skip the Robert Lewis. It'll be interesting to see if he goes to Oaklawn Park or if he waits for the San Felipe. Mutasaabeq, he has options. Will we see him in the Holy Bull at the end of January? And then already Capo, Kane pointing to the Withers. That's a look at your race recap from the weekend. Churchill Downs updated the Road to the Kentucky Derby point standings following the Sham Stakes with Life is Good. And still the leaderboard shows Essential Quality on top with 30 points. Keep Me in Mind with 18. And Jackie's Warrior rounds out the top 3 with 12 points. Picking up 10 points for their victories was Capo, Kane with 10 now on the board. And of course, the winner of the Sham Stakes, Life is Good, picked up 10 more. Mutasaabeq, the Mucho Macho man, was not a Triple Crown Kentucky Derby point standings race, so no points on the road to the Kentucky Derby for Mutasaabeq, but still plenty of points to be gathered out there. We'll take a look at the workouts up next. Week on the workout report, many horses hitting the track for their first workouts of the season, including Jackie's Warrior, 3rd in the point standings on the road to the Kentucky Derby. He had a 4-furlong breeze at the end of 2020, and that was just a slow workout. He's down at the fairgrounds right now. Essential Quality, most likely going to be named the champion 2-year-old after his Breeders' Cup Juvenile win and the win in the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland. He has had a couple of workouts back. I don't think we're going to see him in the Lecomte Stakes, most likely in the Risen Star or maybe at one of the races at Oaklawn Park, as Brad Cox is going to have to split up a couple of his runners. Meanwhile, it was Getter Number, the horse that won the American Pharoah Stakes. He passed up on the Breeders' Cup. He's back on the workout. If he gets 4 or 5 workouts in, a possibility we may see him in the Robert Lewis at the end of the month, but probably more likely the San Felipe. Spielberg came out of his win in the Lausanne Futurity. He was back on the track. He's most likely going to point for the Robert B. Lewis Stakes for trainer Bob Baffert. Other horses, Swift Sure had a couple of workouts last week. It looks like he'll be going to the Lecomte. And Mandaloon, the big strapping son of Into Mischief, he's a big boy. He's had a couple of workouts, including 5 days apart, so he's definitely cranking up for a race in that Lecomte Stakes at the fairgrounds. The upcoming schedule looks like this. On the point standings, we've got 3 preps coming up in January. January 16th, we've got the Lecomte Stakes. Then we've got on January 22nd, the Smarty Jones Stakes at Oaklawn Park. And then at the end of the month, the Robert Lewis and the Holy Bull Stakes. And that's really where it starts to pick up with some of the better horses and some of the horses actually pointing for some of the bigger races in the spring. And of course, will we see Mutasaabeq maybe in the Robert Lewis, in the Holy Bull, and then out west, usually some of the better horses kind of start gunning for that January 30th Robert Lewis Stakes. So that's a look at some of the workout horses and the upcoming schedule. And the probables coming up for some of those races, again, the Lecomte Stakes, we've got horses like Swift Sure and Mandaloon pointing for that one, Spielberg for the Robert Lewis, and still really no official word yet on Prate. Of course, he was an impressive victor in the maiden race at Fairgrounds, although it looks like right now he did have a workout after that race. They are going to point to sprint races with him, but we'll see. A lot of times that Derby fever can start to pick up. That's a look at your future book for January 4th. Remember, hit subscribe. Leave a like, smash that like button, or have a question or a comment, want to know about a horse. We'll get to those on next week's show. So leave a comment as we continue to point you towards the first Saturday in May on the Future Book. And remember what D. Wayne Lucas always said, people have opinions, horses have the facts. Until next week on the Future Book.